Canada curious? This is the Yes We Canada podcast, the progressive's guide to getting the fuck out. This episode, How to French in Canada.
Hi, I'm Matt Zimble.
Hello, bonjour, Mathieu. Je suis Mio Edelman.
Très bien, Mio. Très bien, bienvenue.
Merci beaucoup.
Right out of the gate, y'all, it's pronounced Quebec, not Quebec. Technically, Quebec is one of the 10 provinces in Canada.
Technically?
A province is like a state, but with more power and less rednecks. But in our country, Quebec is actually the founding French nation of Canada, which is why it gets its very own podcast.
And in Quebec, French is the official language. English is spoken widely, but it's not an official language, meaning that the government may provide English services to its citizens, but they do so as a courtesy, not as an obligation.
Now, I really hate to nag, but just a quick reminder, we're doing this podcast so that when you immigrate to Canada and take your citizenship, you will actually pass. This next segment may be a real question on the test, so let's focus up here, make some notes. Mio, are you ready for the question? Because you're going to have to answer it. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
There is only one province in Canada that is officially bilingual. For 10 points and free Medicare for life, what is the name of that province?
And I know that this is a trick question because everyone's going to think that it's Quebec. However, it is New Brunswick.
Oh, man, you nailed it.
Yes. Got it. Give me my free Medicare.
And you know what else? There's a bonus gift.
What?
You may remain in the country and you've won a free ab implant. As the only...
I actually could use one of those right now. It's been a long winter.
As the only French-speaking province in Canada, the government of Quebec has greater control over what are considered federal jurisdictions in other provinces. For example, immigration, taxation, and employment. Francophone Quebecers are like a tiny island of 8 million French speakers in North America, surrounded by 360 million people who speak English as their principal language. So keeping Quebec French is a huge challenge. Therefore, Quebec's immigration policy gives priority to French-speaking immigrants. And yes, we know that as an American exceptionalist, you are comfortable with having priority in every fucking thing you do. But even though you know how to say bonjour, oui, and voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir, I think it's going to take a little more than that to get you into Quebec as a French-speaking immigrant. Désolé.
But fear not. If you do want to live in Quebec and you only speak the French phrases Mathieu just told you about, here's a free immigration hack. You can officially immigrate to another Canadian province where French is not required. You have your choice of 9 others, plus 3 bonus territories, and the waiter will be over with the menu provincial in a second. And then once you land in Canada, you can sneak across the unprotected Ontario-Quebec border and set up shop in Quebec. So, for example, if you land in Toronto, just get on the 401 Expressway east 5 hours, hang a left at the sign that says Bienvenue au Québec, English pig dogs welcome, easy peasy, and legal.
And if you get stopped by the provincial police, just say this. C'est correct, je suis avec the band.
What, are you driving a bus?
Now, once you get here, and I say here because this podcast is written and produced in Montreal, Quebec's largest city, with a population of almost 2 million. Once you get here, you will need to learn how to speak French, because to live in Quebec without speaking French is like living in Manhattan without being filthy rich. It's just not done. Quand tu arrives, you will frequently hear people call Quebec a distinct society, une société distincte. And then you will hear people in the rest of the country call this utter fucking bullshit. It is not. Many in Canada think of Quebec as Confederation's spoiled brat. And if you see Canada as 10 equal provinces, then that is true. Quebec is spoiled. But if you see Quebec as the founder of the French nation of Canada, then it is not true. It depends completely on your POV. The fact, and facts matter here, people, is that Quebec is indeed the French founding nation of Canada, and as such, it is not like every other province. Unique privileges, special powers, are part of its cover charge to enter the Confederation deal. And the 8 Albertans who faithfully listen to this podcast just unplugged. See ya!
Because you get garbage pickup twice a week, which is unheard of in any other jurisdiction.
Mais oui, c'est bon.
As we've said in earlier episodes, Canada is a multicultural society, not a melting pot like you guys have down there in the States. And therefore, there are hundreds of unique cultures and communities all over the country. But I know that as an American, you don't have a lot of time. So I'll break our societies down for you into 4 principal founding. Did you hear the quotation marks around founding? My fingers were up. Chris, can you turn up the volume on the quotation marks in the control room, please?
This is important.
I did not know we had a control room. Anyway, good. 4 founding groups in order of appearance. The Indigenous peoples, so First Nations and Métis and Inuit, les French people, les gens français, the English speakers, les maudits anglais, and the Newfoundlanders. And the Newfoundlanders. I didn't even know how to say that.
Well, they've only been in Confederation for a little while. You still can practice.
That's true. That's true. Know that I just pissed off 80% of our Canadian listeners, but keep listening, just for fun. We'll review all of these groups in podcast future, but today, let's start with the French in Quebec.
The first permanent settlement in New France was founded in June 1604, when a French guy named Pete and his mapmaker Sam bumped into a small 6-acre island in the middle of the St. Croix River.
Okay, listen, you are degrading our history. Just give me a second here. Just wait a sec, okay? Are you talking about Samuel de Champlain and Pierre Duguay de Mont?
Yeah, baby, you're the Mont.
You're the Mont. I can see them fist bumping each other in their canoe.
It was a lot bigger than a canoe there, buddy.
I love how sort of like laissez-faire you are with your history.
Yeah, that's my deal. Okay, so Pete and Sam find this chill little island between what is now known as Maine and New Brunswick. They thought it was paradise. Beautiful, warm, lots of fish, lots of deer. As they said in their journals, no Indians. And so on this island paradise, they built the first French outpost, France 2.0. What could possibly go wrong? Winter. You see, there was a reason that the Passamaquoddy people who had been living by the banks of this river for centuries didn't live on that island, and that reason was called winter. In their first winter of 1604-1605, 35 of the 79 men from France died of scurvy. And Mio, scurvy sounds scuzzy.
Listen, scurvy is not just a French explorer phenomenon. Lots of people get it.
You got to eat your vitamins or you're going to get scurvy. That's what we used to tell our kids all the time. Freaked them right out.
Samuel, mangez tes vitamines.
Excellent. Your French is very good.
Bien sûr. D'accord.
Bien sûr. So the indigenous people of the Passamaquoddy welcomed the French newcomers, but honestly, they were likely happy when the French decided to live on the island because I think we can say, without prejudice, that French people in the 1600s, as with most people in the 1600s, had some funky-ass personal hygiene rituals.
You are going to be in so much trouble.
Remember, this was the era when the stinkiest of French cheeses, a poise, was considered a breath freshener. You put those brothers on a boat for 3 months, no fresh vegetables, no mani-pedis, and baby, you got the Euro funk!
Let me just put some épois under my arms.
And, as they say, the rest is history.
Who says that, Matt? You know who says the rest is history? Lazy-ass historians who don't want to put in the work. That's who. There's more history, so you should just say it as opposed to just refer to it.
You are correct.
So you're just going to leave us on an island on the St. Croix River with 44 Frenchmen without mani-peds, dying of scurvy, smelling like a poisse in the winter of 1605, and just say, like, the rest is history? Like, really? Is that how you're going to do things?
Worse than that, Mayo, check this out.
I actually am from Montreal. Well, you know. Est-ce que vous êtes de Québec? Vous parlez le français? Moi, je parle français aussi. American. All of these people speak French. Est-ce que vous voulez aller manger la poutine à la toilette? Absolutely bilingual.
That is one of our most beloved Canadian comics. Her name is Martha Chavez. Martha Chavez? Wow, that doesn't sound like a Canadian name. And that's because one of the most popular Canadian comics is from the Managua, Nicaragua part of Canada. As a teenager...
the Managua territories?
As a teenager, Martha kept two diaries. One she now calls the Fake News Diary, and the other was the Truth, Nothing But the Truth, So Help Me God Diary. She knew her mother would read her diary, so the Fake News Diary was left out willy-nilly, and the Nothing But the Truth Diary was well concealed. Well, you know how absent-minded teenagers can be.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day, the wrong diary was left out and was read by the governing parental administration. The highly classified intel contained in the Nothing But the Truth diary revealed that Martha had been, as she put it, dabbling in lesbianism. So to stop her from becoming a full-fledged Gold Star lesbian, her mother decided to ship her off to Montreal, Canada. Montreal, the city with the most beautiful women in the world.
Matt, I love Martha just as much as you do. But I'm just not sure how we go from Samuel Champlain to Martha Chavez, how we go from an island on the East Coast in the winter of 1605 to Martha Chavez being exiled for her lesbianism to Montreal. Can you, I love listening to you talk, but maybe you could just get to the point a little quicker?
No.
Oh, my God.
You see, Mio, there's a reason that we are talking about Montreal, and the reason is that it's an immigration story.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 1663, the French king, Louis XIV...
Oh, good. Okay, now we're getting, time appropriate. We're getting back to business.
We're back to business. Louis XIV was trying to colonize the New France, which later became Quebec. At the time, the place was full of soldiers, fur trappers, and priests, which would make for a pretty dull Saturday night at the disco. Why don't we find a bunch of strong, healthy orphan girls in France and offer them a few francs and a hope chest and ship them over to New France, which eventually became known as Canada? Now, this was centuries before a French woman by the name of Regina Zeibelberg revolutionized nightlife in New York City by opening the first discotheque in the Big Apple called Regine's. But you can see where I'm going with this, right?
Not really. Are we? I find the women being brought over interesting, but are you saying, are we getting to the first discotheque in Montreal?
Nope, we're going to flip right back to the 1600s. It's date night in the colony, and it's super dull. Yeah. Everyone's at their local.
Right, okay.
Father's telling another one of his yet endlessly dull stories about the menu at the Last Supper. The trappers are all sitting together because they stink like beaver gonads and no one will sit with them. And the soldiers are all trying to avoid the priest. Father, could I get you another beer? Of course, they were French, and they didn't sound like that at all. Un autre verre de champagne, mon père. Bottom line is, who the fuck wants to move to New France? Winters are long and hard, spring is buggy as all get up, and there's no girly action.
I'm trying to find my friends. Well, I'll just follow the smell of the beaver nuts. Don't worry, I'll let myself in. But, moving to the colonies, Matt, it just must have been such a tough decision for these young women to make. I mean, did they make a decision or were they forced to go? If they actually did make the decision, Most of them were poor urban girls between the ages of 12 and 25 who were from Paris, Normandy, or Western France. Most of them were illiterate and not schooled in the ways of rural life, which was very rigorous, like anywhere at the time, like this farm life, but with no equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Like even more so in the buggy colonies. Like these young women may have been called the daughters of the king. They were called the daughters of the king. But make no mistake about it, they were not princesses. They gave birth to 4,459 young New Francians, as they were called. And they have since been upgraded from the lowly moniker, the king's daughters, to the much more dignified mothers of a nation.
Yes, I know. I'm once again force-feeding you more dull Canadian history. Forgive me for pointing out your American xenophobic tendencies, but this story has a direct effect on why you have been in such a miserable mood since the January 6th white trash rebellion of your capital. You're worried about the state of your union, and I get that. But you're listening to this podcast, right? Why? Because it's the first step on your path towards Canadian citizenship, you dreamer, you. And here's why I'm so excited to tell you about the fille de roi. A descendant of the fille de roi is actually responsible for the presidency of Donald J. Trump.
What?
Which in turn led to the white trash rebellion at the Capitol. Okay, now you're listening.
Yeah.
Yep. Hillary Rodham Clinton descends from a fille de roi, an FDR. Now, Hillary gets blamed for a lot of shit, especially by those QAnon whack jobs, but I think if Hillary had just gone to fucking Michigan one more time in 2016, we would never have gotten into this mess. So Hillary is not only the mother of a nation, she's also the mother of individual one, Donald J. Trump. Man, that must hurt.
Fameux fille de roi? On a beaucoup. We got him by the bushel, folk. Listen, not just Hillary Rodham Clinton, Madonna, Celine Dion, Alanis Morissette, and Angelina Jolie are all descendants of the fille de roi. Your famous and distinguished Canadian cousins whose foremothers arrived in North America with bad breath and a meager hope chest, then went on to win a pile of Grammys, Oscars, and almost a presidency. One of the reasons Quebec is considered distinct is because when the French founded New France on the Indigenous people's land, which later became known as Lower Canada and then as Quebec, they used the French legal system called civil law. The rest of Canada, also known as ROC, pronounced Let's Rock, was settled on the Indigenous people's land by the British, who used the common law legal system.
At the Yes We Canada editorial meeting, we thought about maybe bringing in a French and English lawyer to explain the intricate differences in these two legal systems. But you guys know lawyers, right? They get paid a lot of money by the hour, and they talk about nothing just to get those billings up. So fuck them. We trust you'll be able to figure this out on your own. No, scratch that. We're going to help. This is the answer from the Washington University Law School in St. Louis, and it will do two things. It will explain why the whole world hates lawyers, and it will not help you understand the difference between civil and common law unless you already have a law degree and you're articling at the Supreme Court. The main difference between these two systems is that in common law countries, case law in the form of published judicial opinions is of primary importance, whereas in civil law systems, codified statutes predominate. Got that? Me either. And I got my grade 9. All you have to know is since you Yankees originate from the British, your legal system in the U.S. is based on common law. If you move to Quebec, you will be divorcing your third husband in a more civil manner. Now you really want to move here. I chose to live in Quebec because basically in Canada, this is where the party is. I learned how to speak French. Now, as a native New Yorker, speaking French makes me an intellectual, an internationalist, and a really good lover.
You got to see this
Truth
guy.
be Truth be known, my French grammar is very troubled. So I always make sure the Quebecers know that I'm originally from New York, because to their ears, my French is horrific for an English Canadian, but superb for a New Yorker. Merci, bonsoir. I love speaking French. When you get here and try to learn, it will seem like an insurmountable task. It is not. Let me break it down for you. A sentence is like a canal. Fill it up with words. Hopefully, when you finish, there will be some meaning. Use a lot of shit words, words that in English would be like, knows, or likes, or tickety-boo, that type of thing. That way, you're speaking more, and it sounds like you know a lot more French than you actually do. Minimum work, maximum results. I call this the American method. Here's a few great phrases. Tu sais, you know. Mais oui, but of course. And boeuf.
What is boof? Wait. What is boof?
You try it. Just try boeuf.
Boof.
That's good. You're good. It's not actually a word. It's more like a guttural sound. Place it in the back of your throat. Shrug your shoulders at the same time. It should sound like you just threw up in your mouth.
So you want some liquid? You want some liquid?
A little bit. Have fun with it. That's right. Oh, that's very good. Have fun with it, because this expression, or perhaps it's more of a regurgitation, means what it means is, really? I don't give a shit.
Boof.
Or I guess in French it would be like, really? I don't give a shit. It's actually a French slang from France. Yes, the France. So if you use it in Quebec, boeuf, French-speaking Quebecers will think you're from France, which will explain a lot about your arrogance. When you study French, you will realize that lots of French words are the same as they are in English. I call these free words. Do you remember the famous quote that was used to illustrate how dumb George W. Bush was? The French don't even have a word for entrepreneur. Well, first of all, I'm no advocate for George W. Bush, believe me, but he never said that.
What?
And for another thing, yep, he never said that. It's just BS. Left-wing commie BS. My man George never said that. And for another thing he never said, we take you to a scene from my next very short film. The action opens on the sun-bleached interior of the master bedroom at a ranch in Crawford, Texas. It's early in the morning on January 7th, 2021. A man and a woman, clad in the pajamas of the ruling class, spoon in bed. The man gently shakes the woman awake. Laura, wake up. CNN says I'm no longer the worst president ever. Oh, George, go brush your teeth. Mio, you there, man? It's been a while since you said anything.
Yeah, I mean, you write these scripts, and it always says Matt. So, that's not my name. So, right. I mean, you could have given me Laura or you could have given me George, but you took both for yourself.
That's a very good point. Actually, Laura will be replaced by a woman.
Oh, George, go brush your teeth.
Oh, hang on. That's a good audition. Maybe you might have nailed another gig on this show, man. Could you do that one more time?
Thank you, Matt. Oh, George, go brush your teeth.
That's in, Mio. I'm letting the other person go. That's your line. You got it.
Thank you.
Et je suis content que tu n'as pas fâché contre moi. I'm just going to finish up this next thought, and then I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay.
French grammar is very, very complicated. I wouldn't really recommend it. Just speak in the present tense. And also, this feminine-masculine bullshit, out of control. Check this out. Beer is feminine.
What?
Wine, yeah. Beer is feminine. Wine is masculine.
No.
Yeah. An erection is feminine.
Ooh.
A clitoris is masculine.
Oh, come on. That's ridiculous.
It's true. I swear to God. Need I say more?
No, you definitely do not need. You have said enough.
Thank you.
So anyway, the French language is the heritage and culture of Quebec, and that culture is under threat as the internet and streaming media evaporate borders. Ensuring that Quebec stays French has led to some rather remarkable yet occasionally understandable legislation from Quebec lawmakers. In Quebec, there are what we call language laws. You probably didn't know this. I find these really crazy. So not like I before E, except after C, more like signs that advertise a business must do so in French, and the French...
En français, dude.
What?
En français, dude.
Signs that advertise a business must do so en français, and en français must be the predominant language on the sign, which led to the famous Montreal smoked meat battles of 1987.
You're going to have to explain smoked meat, Mio.
That is the job that I was born to do. I'm a bit of a smoked meat historian. Actually, seriously though. So anyway, smoked meat is like pastrami, which you've probably heard of, or corned beef. More like pastrami than corned beef, but whatever. It doesn't matter. You probably know corned beef better. For the purposes of this lesson, it is more like pastrami, okay? But actually way better. It's a specialty in Montreal and was created by, wait for it, the Jews, who pickled beef briskets, studded them with massive amounts of coriander seed, and then smoked them. In 1987, the government tried to ban the phrase smoked meat, which is obviously in English, in favor of the French term boeuf mariné. But no one knew what the fuck that was, including the French. And so when it was challenged in court, the Quebec government lost.
Mio, how do you say case dismissed in French?
I don't know. I think you're the French person, but let me just try here. Va-t'en. Does that sound good? That means get the fuck out of here, which is, I think, actually the way that they...
Yeah.
I think the judge says that in court when you lose in Montreal or Quebec.
Okay, so I'm just going to do that one time here to make sure that we really get it with a good French accent, because mine's so much better than yours.
Oh, fuck off.
Va-t'en! Lunch!
Right, and then everyone goes to Schwartz's right after that.
That's right. That's right.
So
and orders smoked meat, not boeuf mariné.
Right, exactly. The most famous smoked meat joint in Montreal is Schwartz's on Saint Laurent Street. There are lineups a block long outside every day of the year, and a very funny musical was written about the place. If you're a vegetarian, now's the time to go get a tofu snack and skip the next little bit of the podcast, because it will not only be of little interest, it may cause you some nausea. We'll holler at you when the segment is over. Vegans, va-t'en. A sandwich at Schwartz's is a steaming pile of hot smoked meat.
Oh, God, that sounds disgusting.
Oh, what are you talking about? It's amazing. Sliced thick by hand, served with yellow mustard on rye bread. That's it. You may order it lean, medium fat, or fat. And if you do order it lean, you're a tourist, and I have no respect for you because you're fooling yourself, and you will actually choke on your sandwich. But anyway, if you think by removing the fat, which is the flavor, that your dry smoked meat is going to advance any kind of healthy eating regimen, forget about it. The smoked meat sandwich has a half-life of 150 years. You will be dead, like a long time. Your bones will be dust, but your stomach will still be trying to digest your smoked meat sandwich. So disgusting. Boof. Buffon. No, sorry. Boof. 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 Here's how you order it. Get the medium fat. Pick the hunks of fat off. They have a defibrillator next to the coffee machine. And with this hack, you have a juicy, tender sandwich without much fat and tons of flavor. And just so you know, flavor up here is spelled F-L-A-V-O-U-R, which tastes way better. And yes, you are welcome.
You know, we really should have status as a public service.
I agree.
We teach them how to spell. We teach them how to, eat properly. Well, I'm not sure this is eating properly, but I used to live in Toronto, and whenever I would visit Montreal, one of the first stops would be Schwartz's, for sure. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I moved to Montreal, and my studio was just up the street from the deli. So twice a week, I would go there for lunch. It was heaven.
Oh.
Can you imagine?
Oh.
One day, I looked up from my huge pile of meat and rye, mustard, French fries, pickles, sours, coleslaw, and a cherry Coke.
Oh, is that all?
And I realized that I was surrounded by a lot of older Jewish gentlemen in the schmata business who were all 150 pounds overweight, had very bad skin, and little hair. and my visits became sparser.
As sparse as the little hair.
Then, in 2012, the shiksa matron of the Jewish deli in Quebec, Céline Dion, bought Schwartz's, and my visits became even sparser.
Celine Dion, a descended from Les Filles de Roi.
That's right. Absolutely
Yes.
correct. And now she's a deli
Yes.
queen. Sounds like a song, Deli Queen. Deli Queen. Okay. Now, you are likely thinking that I have digressed and that we are completely off topic here. We were deep into the Quebec language laws, and then suddenly the vegetarians have been dismissed, and we're picking pieces of fat out of smoked meat sandwiches while listening to My Heart Will Go On.
All by myself.
Check your pitch there. Never mind.
Don't want to be all by myself.
You better stop singing, or we're going to have to acquire the rights, which we can't
That's
afford.
True. That's true.
Okay,
you get a sandwich when you buy the rights to that song.
That's very funny. Okay, so you guys at home are trying to figure out where to live in Canada, and I'm telling you where to get a delicious sandwich. Mio, I can just hear our Americans screaming, "Dude, I'm a busy American. What's your fucking point here? What are you going? Where's this going? What's going on?" Okay, send the vegetarians back in.
Now, I, like you, almost never know what Matt is talking about. Mathieu, what he's talking about. But there is a reason to all of this. Here's the reason we're talking about meat and the French language, okay? In 1977, the Quebec government proclaimed the Charter of the French Language, a.k.a. Bill 101, and it designated French as the official language of Quebec and implemented laws to ensure that French would be the principal language of the workplace. Now, before you think Bill 101 is a fascist rule that flies in the face of your democratic American values, imagine for a minute that your Francophone mother was an exceptional manager, but she was continually passed over for promotions because she didn't speak English as well as she did French, or maybe just because her name was French. Imagine her frustration and disbelief as she watched a bunch of Anglophone males who spoke very poor French, or none at all, get the promotions in a predominantly French workplace, often serving a French clientele. Can you see where one might start to recognize that one's language must be protected?
Back in the day, many of the companies in manufacturing and resources in Quebec were in fact owned by your Yankee people. And though the girls in Quebec were pretty, the French language was just a goddamn nuisance. Speak white, for fuck's sakes. The English-speaking bosses in Quebec, both Canadian and American, actually told the Francophones to, quote, speak white.
Wow.
As you can imagine, this led to, well, centuries of animosity. And then in the 1960s, it led to what's called the Quiet Revolution, when Francophone Quebec said to the English bosses, "You can all go fuck yourselves."
Y'all can go fuck yourselves. That's the quiet. that was the Quiet Revolution.
You're right. You're bringing history off the page, man. Except it sounded more like this. Va te faire foutre, tête carrée. Then, in the 1970s, the Quiet Revolution got a bit louder when the paramilitary separatist group Front de Libération de Québec kidnapped the British Trade Commissioner James Cross and assassinated a Quebecois cabinet minister, Pierre Laporte. We will cover all of this in a future episode that currently has the working title, A Very Short History of Canadians Behaving Badly. Fast forwarding to 1977, Bill 101 becomes law under the independentist government of the Parti Québécois, led by former Radio-Canada journalist René Lévesque. Many businesses moved their head offices out of Montreal, and many Anglophones, estimated at 250,000, especially the moneyed elite, leave Quebec, which established Toronto as the new business capital of Canada. The signing of Bill 101 wiped out the real estate market, which is when all the French artists bought lovely palatial homes in the leafy, rich English section of the city for nada. Now let's get back to the smoked meat of the matter. The French.
I just woke up. I was taking
hungry?
a nap, and you said smoked meat, and I woke up. Thank you. Well, you talk for so long. I set my alarm to smoke meat. You said
Look,
it. And
these
I'm
are
up.
important
Okay, let's do
legislative
this.
details, dude. The French language charter, created in 1977, also created the Office Québécois de la Langue Française, whose job it was to ensure and enforce the predominance of French in Quebec. Suddenly, your local Jewish deli was obliged to become a charcuterie hébraïque. Businesses had to change their signage, and because the possessive tense is treated differently in French, there were a lot of orphaned apostrophes running around in the streets causing all kinds of trouble. The Office Québécois de la langue française enforcers became known as the tongue troopers, or the language police. Now, as an American progressive, you've no doubt heard all the powerful arguments about collective rights versus individual rights, so I won't review them here. But you need to know that there have been numerous skirmishes in the language wars, and before you get here, you should have some opinion about this, because believe me, it will come up.
The stop signs were the first front of this tongue war, and they were all changed to arrête, the French word for stop. But it's a word they don't even use in that context in France. This caused Anglophones tremendous difficulty because even though the signs were still octagonal and red with white letters, they didn't know what to do. Tabernacle!
God damn it! Ouch. Nasty. Then a few years ago, we had what became known locally as Pastagate, when the Office Québécois de la langue française told an Italian restaurant that the use of the word pasta, antipasta, calamari were all illegal in Quebec.
Wow.
The story got huge traction around the world, leading to much local embarrassment and the resignation of the head of the Office de la langue française. You may now legally call ethnic food by its original name in Quebec menus, but frankly, a chien chaud sounds so much more appetizing to me than a hot dog.
Hot dog. The executive summary of the language issue in Quebec, vintage 2021, is there are many Francophones who are hyper-vigilant about the most minuscule decline in the use of the French language, and for very good reason. Without their vigilance, the language probably would disappear. There are also many Anglophones who will never get over the fact that they are indeed the minority culture in Quebec, even if they are generally well treated. And then there's a third group of people who live in Quebec whose mother tongue is neither French nor English. They are called allophones. And for them, the big question is, why the fuck do they call us allophones? Come on. Language issues are also a generational and immigration challenge within the Francophone community because young people in Quebec who were raised digitally, particularly in Montreal, the largest city, see the world as their playground and are at ease in English, even though their mother tongue is French. On top of that, there's recently been a massive spike in immigration from France to Quebec. Some call it colonisation 2.0. Colonization 2.0. And those French people from France are famous for their love of inserting English words into their French sentences because they think it makes them sound cool.
Alors, je vais aller chercher le car au parking et nous irons faire du shopping.
Oui, très cool.
In November of 2017, Pascal Bérubé, a member of the Quebec legislature, and in Quebec they're called deputies, Pascal went into a store in Montreal and was greeted by the clerk with the oft-heard expression here,
Bonjour. Hi.
Deputy Bérubé found this irritating and drafted a resolution affirming that only bonjour should be employed as a commercial greeting. Oh yeah, a commercial greeting in the States? The fuck you want?
This is all just such petty bullshit. I can't believe it. But anyway, go on.
This solo bonjour was adopted in a vote by the entire legislature 111-0.
Wow. And since this was passed as a motion and not a law, it's not in any way enforceable. It's like the government calling you up and saying, could you please just say bonjour and not hi? Okay, awesome. Appreciate it.
Should you decide to immigrate to Quebec, you need to know that just like in the rest of Canada, if you fuck up, you can be tried in Quebec courts in the language of your choice. Your Honor, I'll have English with a side of civil law, please. You may also receive medical attention in most parts of Quebec in the language of your choice. There are also English schools in Quebec for your children. But be forewarned, the next time white supremacist nationalists decide to convene another white trash rebellion and attack your capital, and you decide to apply for asylum in Quebec as a political refugee, your children will have no choice but to go into French school. Immigrants have a choice, refugees do not. Oh, and one last thing. when you heartily throw open the door for your immigration interview in Quebec, you might not want to greet the Quebecois immigration officer by saying, bonjour, hi? We'd like to thank Laugh Out Loud at CBC for the Martha Chavez concert footage. Don't forget to subscribe to the independent Yes We Canada podcast on whatever platform you listen to. There's a new episode every Tuesday. From all of us, thanks for listening.